Well, see, that's the thing about KJ Lyons here. That's the show. You do get like a yin and the yang of unseriousness, humor, and vaudeville with like real serious sports. It's like a sweetened, like a salty and chocolate bar. It sometimes does hit just right, and I think that's what KJ and Lyons does here.
The Just Right Show
on WEEI, and right at the 30 mark. This is this technical beauty going on here. Is what's been going on at the Olympics. Do we have any Olympic music there, Jacob, that we can kind of celebrate what has been probably the most boring Olympics in my life? Because it's like I've got all these cable I've got cable, right? I got a streaming package. I've got several streaming packages. This might be the first Olympics where I'm like, if it's not a sport I'm like specifically looking for, then why am I not paying attention to the thing I'm paying $30?
Have you watched that like Red Zone type thing on Peacock at all? Like, what do they call it?
No, that's one of them. I don't. It's something I don't pay for.
Oh, fair enough. No, totally. Hey, I hear you. Trust me, I hear you on that.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, it's in a decent time zone for a change for the Olympics, but yet it's like the things that I've watched the most have been women's beach volleyball, women's indoor volleyball. I mistakenly thought the men's skeet shooting was something different, and I turned. I was like, maybe I need to watch the women's skeet shooting. And that's really been it. I've watched Team USA basketball. What have you been watching?
I've been watching Team USA basketball. I watched some of the gymnastics routine, men's and women's, and some of the swimming. I watched Katie Ledecky just continue to win golds. But that's kind of about it. I was on vacation for the last week and a half, so I watched some of it there. But you're right. It's been a fine
streaming
Olympics.
Packages you pay for.
Yeah, it's been a fine Olympics, but I haven't been all over it, to be honest.
Yeah, the big story, though, is what happened in the boxing match between Italy's Angela Carini, and Ime Khalif from Algeria. So let me start how some of the blowback has become huge, and it starts with the Boston Globe, who issued an editor's note on Twitter. It's got over 2 million views, and I usually don't care how many views because it's like, wow, 2 million views. They're probably having a conversation. How do we convert those views into subscribers? The editor's note says a significant error was made in a headline on a story in Friday's print sports section about Algerian boxer Imane Khalif incorrectly describing her as transgender. This is according to the Globe. She is not. Additionally, our initial correction of this error neglected to note that she was born female. We recognize the magnitude of this mistake and have corrected it in the e-paper, the electronic version of the printed Globe. This editing lapse is regretful and unacceptable, and we apologize to Khalif, to Associated Press writer Greg Beecham, and to you, our readers. So everybody seems to know about this. Even my wife, who did not watch the Olympics at all, knows about this situation where the Italian boxer Carini takes a couple of punches, steps away. She's like, no mas. And I think people, and this is why KJ and Lyons is going to give you a nuanced direction in this conversation, that it's going to be magnificent, because this isn't an argument about what everybody's gotten wrong. This is all about testosterone levels. Is it not? Like, at the end of the day, if you have too much testosterone, you've got to be disqualified. I think it just comes down to that.
And the first thing I thought of, to be honest with you, KJ, in this whole thing is
right.
The boxer. So, and you're more familiar with this story than I am, so I'll be honest here.
You're on vacation.
The boxer that lost was the Italian boxer, right? So,
correct.
Why did she tap out after getting hit twice? Like, you work 4 years to get to the Olympics, to get to that spot, your whole career fighting, like, that seemed like a really quick tap out to me. Like, that honestly, that was before I even knew the story and, hey, there's this controversy and this and that, like, I'm like, man, if you work your whole life, you work 4 years additionally to get there to the Olympics, and you get hit twice. You didn't even get knocked down. You just got hit hard twice, and you're like, nah, I'm good. Like, that was like, really? Like, after all this work you put in to get there, it's like, okay, I got hit hard a couple times. This person is intimidating. Right. I'm out. Like, I don't know. That was honestly before, like I said, before I even knew the controversial aspect and all that, and all the people angry and whatever.
Right.
Like you get hit hard twice, so you didn't get knocked down, and you just quit.
See, I think what happened in the media and social media especially, and this is what you hear me talk about, is like John and I and all of us who are working at WEEI and pretty much any station that you hear, there are lawyers that are involved, right? We take more trainings on trainings about trainings to make sure that you're on top of what you say, how you say it, so that way there's no legal ramification. Where a lot of people on social, I think it's like rule something 30, where you can say something on social media and nobody can really come after you because you can't go after, say, X or Facebook for somebody says it, because it's kind of like this free speech and they're not necessarily responsible for what someone says. So here's what you see medically. Women's bodies typically produce 1/10 to 1/20th the amount of testosterone as men's bodies. And I'm not saying we're dealing with two men's bodies. So the average level for a woman is between 9 and the number 55. Let's not get into nanograms and deciliters, and it's just 9 and 55. The average for a man is between 270 and 1,070, with an average of 679. Okay, so let's say boxer A from Italy has that high level of 55. But let's say the boxer from Algeria comes in at 75. That's still like almost 8 times the minimum. So if there's too much testosterone, either you're taking it, or if you're naturally taking it, you can't do it, because here's what people forget. Boxing is a martial art. So if we were talking about, hey, in a chess match, that's fine. Testosterone's not being used. But when you're talking about physical confrontation and someone suddenly has 10 or 15 or 20 more units than you, and I'm just using a low number, that might have you say, okay, that punch was just a little harder than normal. What's going on? So I think it just comes down to, because we had this in track and field a few years ago with a sprinter or a sprinter, I can't remember where she was from, but failed the T-test. So, like, forget all this other stuff or what someone is or isn't. What's your testosterone level? If it's too high, it's got to go.
And I feel like this whole situation is almost a microcosm of the negativities of social media and what it's done. Because this, fight happened. It ended quickly, obviously. And it feels like a lot of people ran with one side of the narrative, another side, and the Boston Globe was guilty of this too, right? Like, They ran with all this stuff. And then, a day later, 2 days later, 3 days, facts emerge. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't true, or maybe we got this wrong, we got that
maybe
wrong.
We didn't have all the information.
And then, as you know, KJ, the apology is never as loud as the disrespect in anything ever.
That said great.
Ever.
You said that great.
Right? It never is. So now the Boston Globe and people are in a situation where, like, all right, hey, maybe we got this wrong, but
oops.
As it goes down in history, is it really going to get fully corrected? Like, okay, you issue an editor's note, or somebody on Twitter says, hey, maybe I got this wrong, but there's still going to be a segment of people that just run with the original assumptions, the original story. And again, we see it like it happened here in the Olympics. You and I, and we all, and everyone listening, we see it every day across social media where people just run with things that aren't true.
Right.
And even when they're proven wrong, won't admit they're wrong, because nobody wants to admit they're wrong ever.
Right.
So this is just, again, another situation like that where, regardless of where you fall in the issue politically, there was a huge story and the facts emerged secondhand, right? It wasn't the facts came out and then there was a huge story. It was there's a huge story and then the facts come out. And again, just another microcosm of what's wrong with social media, and we see it a lot in sports, but we see it beyond sports as well.
Well, and some of the characters that are involved with the social media portion of it are the ones who are producing it. If you go back to the opening ceremony where people had some issues of how what it was perceived, then there were people who said, well, this is what the real reenactment was. So I've always said this about entertainment is, if I go to see a Broadway play, I don't want the next guy, the person sitting next to me, trying to play all the roles. Damn it, I came to see who's on stage because they're on stage for a reason. We're now in a situation where everybody feels like they can be on stage and don't know all the nuances that go beyond just hitting record and just rolling with it, right? So, like,
yeah. I once saw on Twitter, I forget who tweeted it, but I think it was a good point. Like, everyone acts like they're the Queen of Denmark, and they have to have a statement on everything. Yeah. It's like some things you don't need to have a statement on. Like me, I'll tell you right up front. I was away. I didn't really follow this story as closely, so I don't have as much to say about it. Like, that's okay. Like, no, you don't have to be an expert or have a statement on everything. But I think a lot of times, and we see it all the time on X and Twitter, and people tweet at us, like, Maybe you don't have all the facts. Maybe you're not right. Maybe you don't. But everybody feels like they have to have an opinion or have to be an expert on like it's okay to not know things or not be an expert on stuff. But you don't see that on X especially.